We will now begin our first session. Dr. Livingston, you should be able to share your screen.
Yes, hello, I'm Steve Livingston. I'm Associate Director here at the Burke. And forgive me while I click many things to get a full screen here going. Okay, so I want to give an overview of the program that we're going to be talking about today, focusing on who it's for and how you apply. Okay, and so this is the Community Facilities Direct Loans and Grants program that we're going to be looking at. It's of particular interest to people in rural areas in Tennessee. And the stated purpose of the program is, as you see on the screen, to provide affordable funding to develop essential community facilities in rural areas. What is an essential community facility? Well, it's a huge number of things. It's really almost easier to talk about what would not be included. And really, unless your project is commercial in nature, or it's private, it's only meant for a few people, or if it's entirely recreational, those are about the only excluded projects from applications under this program. And I put together a few examples from Tennessee of communities that have received funds from this program. So you see, for example, that the city of Athens got a loan to build a new elementary school. Sequatchie County got a combination loan and grant to get some fire protection equipment. City of Covington got a partial loan and grant to repave and mill 11 streets in Covington. So you see, there's just a wide variety of things you can do with the funds that you can receive through this program. Now, the program is intended for rural areas of less than 20,000 people. And within that group, there's a priority for communities that are quite small, having a population of less than 5,500 and having a median household income 80% or lower than the non-metro median for the state of Tennessee. Okay. So when can you apply? Year round. If you'll recall, the federal fiscal year goes October 1 to October 1. And so the best time of year to apply is just after October because there's more money available, right? Funding is competitive. And the most important slide of this whole presentation is this one, because it's telling you, if you're interested, the way that you start is to get a hold of your local USDA Rural Development Office and talk to them about the program. And you see their website there. You see the map here, which you can come back and refer to later. So you will just find the office and representative from the part of the state you're in and contact them to start discussing about your program. Okay, all of the application materials are online. We've got a couple of sessions after I'm done that will go through how you go through the application process. Now, the application itself has a little bit of a confusing terminology because formally there's something called the pre-application process. The pre-application process is gathering all the things that you need to apply. But once you've done that and turned them in, you've applied. So the effort is in the pre-application process more than the application process, which is just a very trivial thing to do once you've got all your documents together. So we're going to turn and go through the documents that you need, and in some cases, how you go about getting them, okay? And so, yes, there's a number of steps to go through, and they're sort of logical. You simply have to indicate who you are, what you're trying to do, that you've completed the necessary studies that one has to complete to gain money and to have a project approved and so forth. There's no particular order in which to do this. You can get the documents together in any way you wish. But the Department of Agriculture does suggest that you should start by getting your organization's documents together as well as acquiring the DUNS number and SAM registration numbers you'll need. I'll come back to that in a second, what those two things are. I want, before I get into any more detail, to note that if you have a very large project, or if you have a construction in your project, that there are a few more details that you will have to go through in the pre-application process. This form, which you can come back and refer to, has everything that you need to do on it. It's a checklist of all the steps that you need to complete. And so what I'm going to do from here on is just walk through this checklist and go step by step and talk about how you do each of these actions. So, as I noted a second ago, two things that you have to obtain early on are a Dun and Bradstreet number, so-called DUNS number, and a Systems Award Management Registration number, SAM number. These are essentially bureaucratic. A Dun and Bradstreet it's kind of like an ID, so that you are not confused with some other entity in the United States. And the Systems Award Management Registration is to get you into the federal software that manages grants and loans that have been given. In both cases, the Rural Development Office can help you in getting them. So I would again get a hold of the person in the area of the state that you're in and ask them for help on those two things. Then the second step, once you've done that, is that you do have to show that you cannot gain funds at a better rate from a private source, right? You can't get commercial credit at more reasonable terms. Now, almost certainly you can't. The program is extremely good in terms of the rates it's offering for its loans. But the way that you have to show that you haven't, that you can't get better terms someplace else is by getting 3 written statements from banks that show the rates that they would have given you and the terms they would have given you if they had reviewed your application and if they had agreed to give you the loan. So to be clear about that, you do not need to get a statement that they actually have gone through all the process and have decided to accept or to reject you. It's merely indicating if they had have gone through the program, if they had made a favorable decision, what the rates and terms would have been on that loan. I have a letter here. This is actually a rejection letter, but it's just an example. And as I say before, you don't need a rejection letter. You just need to let USDA know that you have looked into private terms and they are not as favorable as those in the program. So let's turn to the next thing you have to do, which is a checklist of the project narrative. And I have here a list of all the steps in completing the project narrative. Most of them are sort of self-explanatory. You need to say what the project is. You need to explain why you want the project, what the community need is for the project. You need to talk about who's involved in the project, if there are multiple agencies of government or multiple entities involved. You need to provide a timeline for the project. Now, if it's a purchase, that's going to be easy, right? But if it's something that's going on for some time, construction or something, you'll need to provide a timeline. You'll need to provide a cost breakdown of the project. And if the project does involve human health hazards, you'll need to indicate those in your project narrative. Okay, the applicant, you, must have been around for 5 years to apply for the loans or funds in this program. And that means you must provide 5 years of audited financial statements. Then you've got to have a proposed budget. Now, if it's a 1-year project, you probably did that in the narrative that you just completed. But if it's a multi-year project, you want to have a budget by major category over the entire time period of the project. Then you've got to fill out a form. The form is called RD 1942-54. And you will see, if you look at this slide, that it in many ways is kind of redundant with the project narrative. This is a 2-page form, so they're not looking for tremendous detail, but it's simply going through sort of the same questions. What do you have now? What are you proposing to replace it with? Why do you need it? What's the service area? How much is it going to cost? If this thing does generate income, how much income you're expecting to gain from it? Are you getting funds from anyone else? And if you've operated things like this facility in the past, evidence of how it worked out, your audits, your financial statements, and so forth. Okay, the next part of the pre-application process, indicating that, yes, your organization did approve to go ahead with this project. So that might be meeting minutes, it might be a resolution by the board, or in some way showing that the applicant's organization has actually approved going through with this application. Now, if you are a nonprofit who is applying for this money, you have to show that you are tax exempt. Basically, you really are a nonprofit. And so you're going to have to show your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and a certificate that your organization is in good standing. If you're a public body, that means that you're going to have to show your charter. And the charter should be recorded. Okay. Things are a little bit different, as I said at the very start of the narrative, if the project involves building something. And you are going to need an architectural report if your project involves construction. In this case, the Rural Development Office can provide names of firms that have done this in the past, but they are unable to recommend a specific firm. Right, so they will tell you who can do it, but it's up to you to select the firm that will do the actual report. All projects need environmental assessment, and once again, the Rural Development Office can provide assistance and a timeline for doing that assessment. If you are purchasing something, it's pretty trivial, right? It'll just take a few days to get this done. Again, if you're doing a construction type project, it's a little more involved, and you can expect that it will last a bit longer to complete that. Next, you have to sign some brief certifications. These are the sorts of things you would have to do if you got any money from the federal government, right? No matter what the program is. By law, you have to promise that the funds you received will not be used to pay lobbyists or to buy influence. And you will have to attest to the fact that you do not have the funds to accomplish this project on your own or with commercial lenders. And you will have to attest there are no outstanding federal judgments against the entity. And then lastly, if you are a nonprofit, you have to provide a certificate of support from a local government. So your local government has to have approved whatever it is that you're going to do. And after you've done those things, there is a 1-page survey to complete about your organization. And that survey is called the Survey on Ensuring Equal Opportunity for Applicants. And again, it's a very brief survey that doesn't take very long to complete. At that point, you're done. You have completed the pre-application, and it's simply a matter of putting all those things that you have gathered together into the system. And at that point, you have applied for funding from this program. Okay, if you want further information on the left is the portal that we have constructed for you to use in putting your forms into the system. And on the right are the people that you should be talking to all the way through from the start. And that's the rural development folks in the region of Tennessee that's closest to you.